Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get-together live here on Facebook, where we take a look at what's going on in our city, what's going on in our state and our country. We check in with you to see what you're up to, what your questions are, your comments, your ideas, your suggestions about our lives here in Puerto Vallarta. And we take all this information so that we can hopefully connect better with each other, with our surroundings, with Mexico's culture, way of life, as a community of English-speaking locals living here in Puerto Vallarta. Today is Tuesday, September 13th. We are getting closer and closer to our Independence Day celebrations. We haven't talked about who we're getting independence from, but that'll come tomorrow. Today, we're going to focus on the fact that it was also the day in which Mexico celebrates Niños Heroes Day, or child heroes, or martyr heroes, or martyr cadets. And we're going to unpack this celebration because it has a very, very curious story. We're also going to take a look at some last minute information that we're getting about local celebrations that may be of help to you in making choices as to how you are going to celebrate Mexican independence, if at all. And we have a couple of other nuggets to share. But first, as always, I'd like to welcome you to Coffee and Headlines. And if you are new to the live broadcast, please let us know by writing the word new in your comment, and we will be so very happy to send you a nice little welcome. And of course, as always, if you have any important comments that you wish to share with everyone here, it helps a great deal if you add a capital letter Q at the beginning of your comment, and that way we will be able to react to it during our comment section at the end of the broadcast. Oh my God. Well, what do you say if we get started? And we start with good news. And the good news is that all municipalities in the state of Jalisco are good to go to celebrate Mexican independence as far as security is concerned. Security. In other words, there are no reports from mayors in any of the municipalities that would indicate that celebrations would be either modified or canceled due to insecurity or violence. And this is very good news. This is about security. It's not about health. It's not about COVID, but it's still very good news to hear. That said, it hasn't yet been confirmed whether Puerto Vallarta will have fireworks on September 15 at midnight or not. Hundreds, if not thousands of people usually congregate along the Malecón to enjoy them, but between the weather forecast and COVID, this very popular aspect of the celebration may or may not take place. Other than that, of course, a lot of music and merriment has been announced for the evening of September 15 along the Malecón. So once again, food for thought. I mean, we don't particularly care for the fireworks when our pets start howling and being uncomfortable, but they're beautiful to look at. And if you're thinking about going to the Malecon to celebrate Independence Day on the 15th because of the fireworks, I would sit tight for another day or two until this is confirmed. Other than that, of course, there will be a formal ceremony and all the other things that we have been announcing. But what a drag if you decide to go all the way over there just to watch the fireworks, to have them canceled. That doesn't sound like fun. September 15 is also an important date for El Pitillal, and particularly this year as it was founded 150 years ago. Aside from activities we've already mentioned, the inauguration of new letters welcoming you into the neighborhood right by the entrance to the Pitillal Riverside Park is expected to take place on that day, followed by a traditional dance on the main plaza. That might be a more subdued, fun thing to attend if you want to be part of the celebration. And of course, yesterday we reported a new shipment of COVID-19 vaccines to the state of Jalisco. And what a surprise. Now we learned that vaccines will be available as of tomorrow. This time around, there are CanSino vaccines available for adults that may be missing any of their COVID vaccines. So if you're starting from scratch, or you missed your second shot or your booster shot, this is your opportunity. The vaccines will be available from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. from Monday through Friday at local health centers starting tomorrow and until October 31st. Pediatric vaccines from Pfizer also arrived, but local health authorities have yet to make any specific announcements about their availability. Let's see. Oh, yes. Sometime last year, we reported on the construction of the El Zapotillo Dam, which is located in the northern edge of the state of Jalisco near Guanajuato. And we talked about the controversies of the project at the time, particularly whether the water collected by the dam would be shared by Jalisco and Guanajuato, and whether the height of the dam itself would affect nearby towns or not. Well, these issues have been apparently ironed out, and AMLO, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, visited the dam along with Jalisco Governor Enrique Alfaro to restart the construction of the project. And all of this is lovely. The bad news is that during that visit, Governor Alfaro found out that no federal budget has been specifically earmarked for Puerto Vallarta for the year 2023. So we cannot expect any federal money coming in for major projects or to be begun or followed up, such as the construction of the Federación Bridge for the entirety of next year. So much for Nayarit Governor Navarro saying that the money had been cleared by the Federation. There's no such thing. So no bridge and no major anything. What can I say? According to the National Weather Service, rain will continue in the region as we anticipate the arrival of yet another tropical storm currently brewing in the Pacific, expected to reach us by Saturday. Let's take a quick look at the weather forecast to see what we can expect. And of course, it helps when I turn the weather forecast on before the broadcast, which I failed to do, but here it comes. And weather forecast says, at this point, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Ukraine ends up conquering Russia. Well, wouldn't that be something? It is 26 degrees outside, feels like 30. Humidity is at 100%. And of course, our temperature in Fahrenheit degrees is 79 Fahrenheit right now. Our weather forecast for today says there's going to be rain and humidity through the day with a high of 30 and a low of 25. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we can expect possible light rain in the evening and overnight with a high of 31 and a low of 26. And then on Thursday, there will be rain in the evening and overnight with a high of 31 and a low of 25. And it rained beautifully last night, at least for a little while. And I like the fact that these rains are keeping the temperature pretty manageable. Let's hope that this continues moving forward. And before we dive into our little adventure through Mexican history, we keep seeing all these news sources all over the country that keep reporting on how increasingly expensive it will be to go out and celebrate Mexican independence at restaurants, should you choose to do this. With some restaurants pricing things like their chiles en nogada, for example, for as much as 540 pesos each. That is one chile en nogada, and this would be about 574% more expensive than preparing it at home. Of course, we know that preparing it at home is a major undertaking. But the article offers an interesting comparison of several staple dishes and their prices in different parts of the country. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said this before, I'm staying home. And of course, again, the celebration is more of the historical context. A lot of people want you to go out and celebrate and party and so forth and so on. Just think about your best choices. That's all I'm going to say. And of course, before we move on to our Niños Heroes adventure, the Emmys were last night. Who knew? In case your television watching choices are influenced by this important award, I will leave the complete list of winners for you to begin planning your fall viewing schedule. And now let's dive into the adventure of the Niños Heroes. Today is Niños Heroes Day in Mexico, and the Niños Heroes, or martyr cadets, are 6 cadets that defended Chapultepec Castle during the war of the war with the United States. And we celebrate these heroic cadets. But what exactly happened there, that's precisely what we're going to talk about now. So the Niños Heroes, there are 6 of them. They have names. We'll find out about them in a second. They have been featured in Mexican currency. There are colonias named Niños Héroes all over the country, and there are colonias in streets named after the individual soldiers wherever you go. They're very popular. In fact, there's even a subway station in Mexico City that features their name. So let's see when and why and how this whole business happened. And let us go back to the Battle of Chapultepec, which took place in 1847. Now, let's stop for a second. This battle took place 37 years after the Mexican independence. So it is not related to Mexican independence. Mexican independence took place in 1810, and we were battling for our independence from Spain. The Battle of Chapultepec, on the other hand, had to do with conflicts with the United States. And we're not going to get into the why there was a battle and so forth and so on. All we are going to focus in right now is the fact that there were invading American forces that were attempting to take over this very strategic location. The Chapultepec Castle, which is located in Mexico City, has a very strategic location because it's high up on a hill, and you can see all of Reforma Avenue from it. So it's a good place to be. But at the time, it was just outside of Mexico City. I mean, that was difficult to imagine, considering the fact that Chapultepec Castle today is right in the heart of the city. Anyhow, there were approximately 2,000 U.S. soldiers involved in this conflict against about 880 Mexican soldiers. So, in Mexican history textbooks, the battle is cast as the story of the brave deaths of 6 cadets. These are the Niños Héroes, who leaped to their deaths rather than be taken captive, and one of them wrapped himself in the Mexican flag in the process. So we hail these 6 young heroes for choosing to take their own lives instead of surrendering to the enemy. And the narrative of the Niños Héroes became this became a way that Mexico could hold on to begin to grapple with the country's defeat in the U.S. invasion. But monuments to the boy martyrs were not built until Mexico had fought the War of the Reform, which was in 1857 to 69, and expelled the French Second Mexican Empire between 1862 and 67. So you see, we didn't even have this huge monument for the Niños Heroes until many, many years after the battle took place. This is the monument right next to Chapultepec Castle, where they are supposedly buried. Who were these Niños Héroes? Well, here are their names: Juan de la Barrera, Juan Escutia, Francisco Márquez, Agustín Melgar, Fernando Montes de Oca, and Vicente Suárez. I show you Juan Escutia in red letters because he is the one that allegedly wrapped himself in a flag and plunged himself into the abyss. And they were all cadets from the heroic military school or Mexico's military college. There is, in fact, a modest site right next to the castle. Again, the castle is high up on a hill, and right next to it there is a modest site that indicates the place where the 6 martyr boys apparently fell. Now, it wasn't until 1872, 25 years after the battle, that President of Mexico, Benito Juárez, signed a decree to honor the Niños Héroes so that their memory would not be forgotten shortly before his death. In other words, Benito Juárez was dying, and he figured we should make them a symbol. So the legend of the Niños Héroes grew bigger and bigger through time. Beautiful monument honoring the 6 boys, says Karen Miller. I agree with you, but 6 boys. Just hold on to that thought because the plot thickens. There was an original cenotaph built in 1881, a cenotaph being a monument honoring the dead people, but their bodies are not contained within the cenotaph. This one was built in 1881, 34 years after the battle, and it was designed by Ramon Rodriguez, who was one of the other cadets captured during the Chapultepec battle. And something fishy happened at this monument on March 5th, 1947. So this is 100 years after the battle. U.S. President Harry Truman placed a wreath at the cenotaph and stood for a few moments of silence in reverence. Of course, American reporters asked him, why is it that you go to the monument to pay tribute to the enemy? And Truman made 2 very specific statements. The first one to the U.S. reporters, he said, "Brave men don't belong to any country. I respect bravery wherever I see it," which is lovely. But he also said something else that rattled everyone's cage in Mexico. President Truman said, "1 century of resentment goes away with 1 minute of silence." Does it? Well, Mexico hated that statement and thought, who the hell are you to come tell us that we're supposed to forget that we're angry just because you held 1 minute of silence in front of this place? So the cadets of the military college took the wreath, mangled it, and begrudgingly left it at the door of the U.S. Embassy. And this, again, is happening in the 1900s. So the Truman incident rattled politicians at every level of Mexico. And Miguel Alemán Valdés, who was president at the time, was under a lot of pressure to honor the 6 Niños Héroes in the most respectful way possible. And he was the one who decided, well, we have to find their remains. We have to identify them and put them in a proper memorial. So during the war, let's go back to that war. Let's go back to the war in which things happened and these 6 heroic cadets plunged to their deaths. During the war, the dead were quickly buried for sanitary reasons near where they fell. And you have to think of, we're honoring 6 beautiful boys or honoring 6 young cadets, but there were around 600 deaths at the time. So there was a mass grave found on the southern hillside of Chapultepec Hill, and 6 bodies were officially identified as belonging to the 6 deceased cadets of 1847. But think about it for a second. I mean, the war was in 1847, and 100 years later, in the 1950s, 1940s, you think we had forensics technology or DNA technology to identify these bodies? Of course not. In fact, a later investigation alleged that the sappers found numerous skeletons but removed only the smallest from the soil. So you see, this beautiful monument, which was not built until 1952, may or may not contain human remains. And this beautiful monument may or may not have the actual Niños Heroes under them. So you wonder, did they actually plunge? Did they actually fall? Well, here's the outcome of the Niños Heroes as they happened. Juan de la Barrera, age 19, fell down. Juan Escutia, who was 20, who was supposedly the one who wrapped himself around the flag, was actually chased and shot. Francisco Marquez, age 14, chased and shot. Agustin Melgar, age 17, he was wounded. He died days later. Fernando Montes de Oca, 18, was chased and shot. And Vicente Suarez, who was 14, was shot. So, this is the story of the Niños Heroes. More fictional than not, but for one reason or another, it remains an important part of our history canon, and we continue to celebrate them. And by the way, if you're wondering what happened to the flag that Juan Escutia allegedly wrapped himself with as he plunged from the castle, well, that flag did appear somehow, and it was taken back to the United States as a war trophy, and it was not returned to Mexico until the presidency of José López Portillo in the late 70s. So, do we defend the fact that there were a bunch of heroic cadets that defended Mexico City's Chapultepec Castle? Of course we do. But did that actually have anything to do with the aforementioned 6 cadets? It's just symbolic. Before we go into our comments, just remember that we're going to have a get-together on September 22nd from 6 to 8 at Whiskey Kitchen Versailles, where we will announce a nice little surprise. And I will keep mentioning this as a reminder. And now let's take a quick look at your comments to see what everybody is up to today. We have lots of good mornings, and we appreciate this as always. Do-do-do-do. There is that intro song that gets me humming. Luisa contacted me this morning to see if I wanted to go to the Malecón with her and a bunch of other friends. And I tell you, Luisa, I'm not sure that I want to go to the Malecón just yet. But again, I stand by my statement that says that it is a rite of passage. Anybody should at least go to the Malecón once in their lives to celebrate Mexican independence, just to say you did it. I'm still not sure whether I'm going to go back this year or not. Many, many good mornings from near and far. Suzanne is in Cinco de Diciembre. Sue is in Fluvial. And did I notice that Catherine was in London? Probably. Yes. Greetings from London town, Catherine. I told you this privately the other day. What an interesting time to be in London. And it's historic, and it's a once in a lifetime. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It is very sad, but take it all in and come back safely. I'll look forward to hearing about your wonderful trip. Let's see what else we have. There's a queue. When you say local medical centers to get a vaccine, how can we find out where these centers are? Thank you. Brad, that is an excellent question, and I have an excellent answer for you. And in fact, let me show it on the screen. You may recall that we have several maps that we produced here at Coffee and Headlines. And one of those maps is a general reference map, which you can find here on our website. If you go into Explore Puerto Vallarta with our maps and you click here, you find description of all the different maps that we have. And one of the maps that we have is a general reference map. In this map, you can find locations of landmarks we've mentioned, restaurants we mentioned, and other places that we mention on a regular basis. And the map includes the location of several of the medical centers you can find here in Puerto Vallarta. So that would be my answer to your question. Just check out the maps, and you will find at least 2 or 3 that I know that we've mentioned that are located within the city. Let's see what else. Oh, Wanda comments, fantastic castle to visit. Oh, yeah. All things Mexican independence and Niños Heroes aside, visiting the castle is a wonderful experience. My fondest memories of the castle was going to the Sunday National Symphony Orchestra matinees at the castle with my father as a child, and that's where my fondness for classical music came from. Beautiful, beautiful place. Albert says, fascinating story, Paco. Thank you so much. I love these history lessons as much as the music lessons. Thank you very much for that. I will be the first to admit that this is exactly the same information that we shared 2 years ago. I was happy to revisit our broadcast, and thank God I've saved all my notes from each one of them, because this is something that we talked about 2 years ago. Angelica comments, the Malecón is going to be packed. That is very likely going to be the case. So again, make your decisions wisely based on your comfort level, on your expectations, and so forth. We will wait until the last minute to learn what is going to be happening. If there are any changes on the information that we've shared so far, we will be so happy to let you know. And this, of course, brings us to the end of today's broadcast. I want to thank you for your company, for your questions, for your comments, and last but not least, for your support. I hope to see you again soon, maybe even tomorrow. Have a great day.